You know what's fascinating about emotions? Most of the time, they control us because we don't even acknowledge they're there. We feel the rush of anger, the sting of anxiety, the weight of sadness, and we either let it explode outward or we push it deep inside hoping no one will notice. But neither of those is control. One is chaos, and the other is denial. Real control begins with awareness. When a friend tells me they're struggling, I don't say, fix it. I say, name it. Because the moment you put words to an emotion, you take back power over it. There's science behind this, but more importantly, there's humanity behind this. When you say, I'm angry, or I'm anxious, you're no longer drowning in the emotion. You're standing outside of it, observing it. And when you observe it, you can decide what to do with it. Think about children. When a child throws a tantrum, they're not bad kids. They just don't yet have the language to say, I'm frustrated because I don't feel heard. So their body takes over, their emotions explode. And as adults, we think we've outgrown tantrums, but the truth is we've just made them look more sophisticated. We snap at colleagues. We send the email we regret. We raise our voices when what we actually needed was to be understood. All because we never paused to name what was really going on inside. I'll give you an example from my own life. There was a time when a project I cared about was falling apart. People weren't showing up the way I hoped. The pressure was high, deadlines were slipping, and I found myself on edge all the time, snapping in conversations, feeling like nobody cared as much as I did. At first, I kept saying, I'm fine, just stressed. But the truth was, I wasn't stressed. I was afraid. I was afraid of failing, afraid of letting people down, afraid of being judged. The moment I said that out loud, even just to myself, I felt lighter. Not because the fear went away, but because I could finally see it clearly. Fear wasn't running me anymore. I was naming it, and that gave me a choice about how to respond. There's a saying I once heard, name it to tame it. And it's true, because emotions thrive in the dark. They're most powerful when they're unspoken. But the moment you drag them into the light by giving them a name, they lose their grip. It's like shining a flashlight in a dark room. Suddenly you can see what's actually there, and it's usually less scary than what your imagination was inventing. But here's where it gets even more interesting when you share your emotions with others, not just yourself. Something beautiful happens. You create connection. Imagine a leader who says to their team, I'm nervous about this deadline too. Suddenly the room exhales. People feel seen. They realize they're not alone. That vulnerability doesn't make you weak. It makes you relatable. And relatability builds trust. Now let's be honest. Naming your emotions isn't always comfortable. Sometimes you don't want to admit you're jealous or insecure or afraid. But courage isn't the absence of discomfort. It's telling the truth in the face of it. And the truth is, the more you name your emotions, the less control they have over you. Think about it like this. If you're driving a car and a warning light comes on, you have two choices. You can cover the light with tape and pretend it's not there, or you can acknowledge it and decide how to fix it. Covering the light doesn't stop the problem. It just makes it worse. Emotions are the same. They're not the problem. They're the warning light. Ignoring them doesn't make them go away. Naming them is how you begin to take control. So the next time you feel the heat rising, the tension building, the panic creeping in, don't bury it. Don't let it explode either. Just pause long enough to name it. Say it to yourself. Whisper it if you have to. Because once you name it, you're no longer reacting blindly. You're choosing with clarity. And that's where real control begins. Pressure has a way of convincing us that speed is everything. That we have to react immediately. That if we don't fire back with an answer, a decision, or a defense, we'll lose control. But here's the paradox. The more urgent the moment feels, the more powerful it is to pause. Think about the last time you reacted too quickly. Maybe someone sent you a text that struck a nerve, and you fired back before thinking. Maybe in a meeting, someone criticized your idea, and you defended yourself instantly, only to regret the tone you used. In those moments, speed feels like control, but it's not. It's the opposite. It's your emotions running the show. And every time I've been in that position, I've realized afterward, I didn't need to react. I needed to pause. I remember being in a heated conversation once where a colleague completely misunderstood my point. My instinct was to cut them off, to correct them, to defend myself. But something in me said, wait. Just breathe. And in those 3 seconds of silence, everything shifted. I realized they weren't attacking me. They were just stressed, just like I was. If I had reacted instantly, I would have escalated the tension. But by pausing, I diffused it. That pause gave me the clarity to respond instead of react. We underestimate silence. We underestimate the power of one deep breath. But that breath, that pause, is the difference between saying something you'll regret and saying something that actually moves the situation forward. It's the difference between spiraling into chaos and steadying yourself with clarity. There's a saying in the Navy SEALs, slow is smooth. Smooth is fast. Under pressure, the best soldiers don't rush. They slow down. They breathe. They move with intention because they know that reacting too quickly leads to mistakes. And those mistakes are far more costly than taking a second to pause. What works in combat also works in life. I'll tell you what the pause really does. It creates space. Space between the emotion you feel and the action you take. And in that space, you get to choose. Without the pause, your anger chooses for you. Your fear chooses for you. Your ego chooses for you. But with the pause, you choose. Some people think pausing makes them look weak, like they don't know what to say. But I'll tell you, the opposite is true. The leaders I've admired most are the ones who don't rush to fill silence. They think. They breathe. They let the room settle. And when they speak, people listen. Because it's clear they're not just reacting, they're responding with intention. And here's what I've learned. Pausing doesn't take time, it gives time. Because when you react too quickly, you usually create a mess that takes hours or days to clean up. But when you pause, even for 3 seconds, you often save yourself hours of regret. The pause is not a delay, it's an investment. But I'll be honest, pausing is not easy. In the heat of the moment, it feels impossible. That's why you have to practice it in the small moments before the big ones arrive. When someone cuts you off in traffic, pause before honking. When your child spills something, pause before snapping. When your phone buzzes with a message that triggers you, pause before replying. Every pause you practice in the little things strengthens your ability to pause when the pressure is truly on. And let me say this, pausing isn't just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting the people around you. Because when you lose control, you don't just damage yourself. You damage relationships. A pause can be the difference between building trust and breaking it, between creating understanding and creating conflict. So the next time pressure tells you to go fast, remember this speed is not strength. Control is strength. And control comes from the pause. Here's something we often forget: emotions don't come from events. They come from the story we tell ourselves about those events. The same situation can happen to 2 people, and one falls apart while the other stays calm. Why? Because of the meaning they attach to it. Think about pressure for a second. Pressure itself is neutral. It's not good or bad, it's simply a demand placed on us. A deadline is just a date on the calendar. A client walking away is just a decision. A raised voice in a meeting is just sound. But the moment we say, "This means I'm failing," or "This means I'm not good enough," that's when the emotion takes over. It's not the event that breaks us. It's the story we write about it. I'll give you an example. Early in my career, I remember losing an opportunity I had been chasing for months. I had poured everything into it. And when it didn't work out, my first reaction was, "This is a disaster. This means I'm not cut out for this. This means I'll never succeed." And you can imagine how that story made me feel: defeated, anxious, ashamed. But years later, when I looked back, I realized the event wasn't a disaster at all. In fact, it taught me lessons I still use today. The failure wasn't the problem. My story about it was. That's the power of reframing. The moment you change the story, you change the emotion. Instead of saying, "This is a threat," you can say, "This is a challenge." Instead of saying, "This is the end," you can say, "This is a new beginning." The facts don't change, but your emotional response does. Athletes do this all the time. Before a big game, they don't say, "I'm terrified." They say, "I'm excited." It's the same physical sensation, heart racing, palms sweating, but the story shifts everything. One story creates panic, the other creates energy. And let's be honest, under pressure, our default story is usually negative. Our brains are wired for survival, which means they scan for threats. That's why we think, what if I mess this up? What if people laugh at me? What if I lose everything? But what if you flip the story? What if you asked, What if this makes me stronger? What if I learn something here? What if this opens a door I couldn't see yet? Suddenly, the same event feels completely different. I remember working with someone who always seemed unshakable under pressure. No matter what crisis hit, they stayed calm. One day I asked them, "How do you do it? Don't you ever feel stressed?" And they said, "Of course I do. But I tell myself this is the work I signed up for. This is where I get to prove myself." That stuck with me. They weren't superhuman. They just told themselves a different story. And here's the best part. You don't have to wait until a crisis to practice this. You can start small. Miss the train. Instead of "my day is ruined," try, "maybe this is giving me space to slow down." Got negative feedback. Instead of "I'm terrible at this," try, "This is a chance to improve." The more you practice reframing the little moments, the more natural it becomes in the big ones. But let me be clear. Shifting your story doesn't mean lying to yourself. It doesn't mean pretending everything is fine when it's not. It means choosing the most empowering perspective that's still true. If you lose a job, you don't have to say, "This is wonderful." But you can say, "This hurts, but it's also an opening to something new." That's not denial, that's resilience. So the next time you feel emotions spiraling under pressure, ask yourself, what story am I telling myself right now? And is there another story I could tell, one that gives me strength instead of taking it away? Because the truth is, the story you choose determines the emotions you live with. And that choice is always yours. One of the most overlooked truths about emotions is that they're not just in your head, they're in your body. Think about it. When you're anxious, your chest tightens. When you're angry, your fists clench. When you're afraid, your stomach knots. Your body doesn't just reflect your emotions, it amplifies them. And if you don't control your body will control you. Here's the thing, emotions are physical before they're psychological. Scientists call it embodied cognition. But you don't need science to know it's true. You've felt it. You felt your shoulders tense up before a tough conversation. You've felt your pulse race before standing on a stage. You felt your jaw tighten when someone pushes your buttons. That's your body telling your brain, something's wrong. The mistake we make is trying to wrestle our emotions only with thoughts. We tell ourselves, "Calm down. Don't be angry. Don't panic." But if your body is still screaming, "Danger," your brain won't listen. Control starts with the body. I'll give you an example. Years ago, I was about to walk on stage to give a talk. My heart was pounding, my hands were sweaty, and my thoughts were racing. And I remember thinking, I need to calm down. But the more I told myself to calm down, the more my body fought back. Until someone backstage told me, "Breathe, deep breath, in through your nose, hold, out through your mouth." It sounded simple, almost silly. But when I did it, my heart slowed, my shoulders loosened, my thoughts cleared. In that moment, I realized my body was the doorway to controlling my emotions. That's why athletes have rituals. That's why soldiers practice drills. They're not just training their minds, they're anchoring their bodies. Because under pressure, the body takes over. And if you've trained it to ground itself, your emotions follow. Anchoring yourself physically doesn't have to be complicated. It can be as simple as unclenching your fists when you're angry. As simple as standing tall instead of collapsing inward. As simple as pressing your feet into the floor to remind yourself, "I am here, I am steady." These little shifts send powerful signals to your brain. I am safe, I am in control. And posture matters more than you think. When you slump, when you shrink, your body tells your mind, "I'm small, I'm powerless." But when you stand upright, when you open your chest, when you breathe deeply, your body says, "I've got this." This isn't just confidence, it's chemistry. Your body literally changes the way your brain processes emotions. I remember a friend who had to handle high-pressure negotiations regularly. I asked him once, "How do you stay so calm when everything's on the line?" He smiled and said, "I have a trick. Before I walk into the room, I ground myself. I plant my feet, I take 3 slow breaths, and I feel my weight pressing down. No matter what happens in there, I know I won't be pushed off balance." And I thought, that's it. He doesn't control the chaos of the room. He controls his anchor. We can all do the same. Next time you feel your emotions rising, don't just argue with your thoughts. Pay attention to your body. Where's the tension? Your jaw. Relax it. Your shoulders. Drop them. Your breath. Slow it down. The body is the switchboard of the mind. Change the signals your body is sending, and your brain rewires how it feels. It's a bit like sailing. You can't control the wind, but you can drop anchor. You can steady the boat so the storm doesn't toss you around. In the same way, you can't always control the pressure around you, but you can anchor your body. And when your body steadies, your emotions steady too. Here's something most people get wrong about controlling emotions. They only think about it when the pressure is already on. They wait until the meeting is falling apart. They wait until the argument has already started. They wait until they're already overwhelmed. And then they wonder why they can't think clearly, why they can't breathe, why they can't stop themselves from reacting in ways they regret. The truth is, you don't build emotional control in the middle of the storm. You build it before the storm. Think about a firefighter. They don't learn how to handle flames by walking into a burning building for the first time. They train day after day when there's no fire, so that when the alarm rings, their body knows what to do. Soldiers do the same. Pilots do the same. Musicians do the same. You practice when the stakes are low, so that when the stakes are high, you don't collapse under the weight of pressure. Emotional control works the exact same way. If the only time you practice calming yourself is when you're already stressed, you're too late. The key is to train your nervous system daily in moments of calm, so it knows how to respond when chaos arrives. For me, one of the most powerful practices is journaling. I don't journal because I have nothing better to do. I journal because it slows me down, it makes me reflect, and it helps me process emotions before they pile up. It's like clearing the mental clutter. If you've ever walked into a messy room, you know how overwhelming it feels. That's what it's like when you let your emotions go unprocessed. Training in calm means cleaning that mess every day, not waiting until it's unbearable. Another practice is breathing. Not the shallow kind of breathing we do when we're distracted, but deep, intentional breaths that signal safety to the brain. When you train your breath in calm moments, while driving, while walking, while lying in bed, you're teaching your body a skill. So when pressure hits, you don't have to think, what do I do? Your body already knows breathe, ground, reset. And let's not forget gratitude. It sounds simple, maybe even cliché, but gratitude is one of the most powerful emotional reset buttons we have. It shifts the brain from survival to possibility. If you train yourself daily to notice what's good, then when life turns upside down, you won't only see the disaster, you'll see the bigger picture. I had a friend who used to panic before every big presentation. He'd overthink, sweat, shake, and convince himself he was going to fail. One day, he decided to do something different. For weeks before his next talk, he practiced standing in front of a mirror, breathing deeply, smiling, and saying out loud, "I'm grateful for this opportunity. I'm excited to share." By the time the real moment came, his body had rehearsed calm. His brain had rehearsed gratitude. And for the first time, he walked on stage steady. Not because the pressure wasn't real, but because he had trained for it. This is why athletes visualize before the game. They see themselves winning. They see themselves steady. They're training their emotions before they even step into the arena. We can do the same. Every quiet moment is a chance to practice. Every ordinary day is training ground. And here's the paradox: if you only wait for chaos to practice calm, you'll fail. But if you practice calm daily, you'll carry it into chaos naturally. Emotional control is not about flipping a switch when life gets hard. It's about wiring yourself slowly, intentionally, so that when life does get hard, you already know how to respond. So the next time you catch yourself saying, "I'll deal with my emotions when things calm down," remember this, that's backward. You deal with your emotions now, so you're ready when things don't calm down. One of the most powerful shifts you can make when it comes to controlling your emotions is to stop asking, "How do I feel right now?" and start asking, "Who needs me right now?" Because here's the truth. Most of our emotional spirals come from being stuck in our own heads. We replay conversations, we anticipate failure, we obsess over how others might see us. The more we focus on ourselves, the louder our emotions get. But the moment we shift that focus to serving others, something extraordinary happens, the fear quiets down, the anger softens, the pressure feels lighter. I've seen this over and over again. Think about someone giving a big presentation. If their mindset is, "I don't want to mess up, I don't want to embarrass myself," they'll be nervous, shaky, defensive. But if their mindset shifts to, I'm here to help these people, I'm here to give them something valuable, suddenly the pressure becomes purpose. The same nerves are there, but they're no longer paralyzing, they're fuel. This is what happens when parents put their children first, even in moments of exhaustion. It's what happens when a teammate lifts another teammate instead of dwelling on their own mistakes. It's what happens when a leader asks, how do I support my people? Instead of, how do I protect myself? Service transforms pressure. Because pressure isn't just about what's happening, it's about where our attention goes. I remember once I had a close friend who was going through a really difficult time. And I'll be honest, I was dealing with my own stress too. My instinct was to say, I don't have the energy for this right now. But then I reminded myself, sometimes the best way to regulate your own emotions is to show up for someone else. So I sat with him. I listened. I didn't try to fix his problems. I just gave him my presence. And you know what happened? As I shifted my focus to his needs, my own stress faded. Not because it magically disappeared, but because my emotions were no longer the center of the story. This doesn't mean ignoring yourself. It doesn't mean suppressing what you feel. It means widening your perspective. When the spotlight is only on you, every emotion feels bigger, every mistake feels fatal. But when you widen the stage to include others, you remember you're part of something bigger. Your emotions aren't the whole story. And there's another layer to this. Service gives meaning to suffering. When pressure feels unbearable, when emotions feel overwhelming, it's often because we don't see a purpose behind them. But the moment you connect your struggle to someone else's benefit, everything changes. That's why people run into burning buildings. That's why nurses stay up all night. That's why mentors push through exhaustion. They've anchored their emotions to something bigger than themselves. You can do this in small, everyday ways. The next time you're angry in a meeting, ask yourself, how do I move this forward for the group? The next time you're nervous before a call, ask, how do I make this person feel understood? The next time you're overwhelmed, ask, who can I serve right now? That shift in focus doesn't erase your emotions, but it reshapes them. And here's the paradox, you actually end up calmer. Because when you stop obsessing over yourself, you free up the energy that was fueling fear and frustration. You put it into something productive. You lead instead of react. You contribute instead of collapse. Service over self isn't just about kindness. It's a strategy for emotional control. It's a way to take the pressure you feel and turn it into purpose. And when purpose drives you, emotions don't dominate you. They follow your lead. There's something you already know about emotions, but maybe you've never said it out loud. Emotions spread. They're contagious. You've walked into a room where someone was furious and you felt your own body tense. You've walked into a room where everyone was laughing and you found yourself smiling, even if you didn't know why. Emotions ripple. And that means when you control your emotions, you're not just helping yourself, you're shaping the environment around you. Think about a leader in crisis. The building's on fire, sometimes literally, sometimes metaphorically. If that leader is panicked, frantic, yelling at everyone, what happens? The whole team spirals. No one thinks clearly. No one acts with precision. But if that leader is steady, grounded, focused, even when the world is falling apart, what happens? Everyone takes a breath. Everyone steadies themselves, because calm is contagious. I remember watching a friend lead through a crisis once. It was a business deal gone wrong, everything collapsing at the last second. The team was anxious, arguments breaking out, people losing their composure. And in the middle of all that noise, he simply sat down, placed his hands on the table, and said quietly, let's take a moment. We're going to figure this out. That one sentence shifted the room, not because the problem disappeared, it was still very real, but because his calm gave others permission to find theirs. We underestimate how much influence we have over others with the way we manage our own emotions. Your calm isn't just yours. Your patience isn't just yours. Your ability to breathe deeply under pressure, it becomes a gift to everyone around you. And the opposite is true. If you let anger or panic run your system, it doesn't just affect you, it infects the group. This is why emotional control is really about leadership. Whether you're a parent, a friend, a teammate, or a CEO, people are watching you. They're picking up cues from you. If you collapse, they collapse. If you steady yourself, they steady themselves. And this doesn't mean you have to be perfect. It doesn't mean you never feel fear or stress. It means you choose to be intentional with how you express it. Even in families, this plays out every day. When a child falls and looks to their parent, what do they see? If the parent panics, the child panics. If the parent smiles and says, "You're okay, let's try again," the child learns resilience. The parent's calm becomes the child's courage. And here's the part that might surprise you. Calm doesn't just help others, it strengthens you too. When you decide to be the steady one, when you anchor yourself for the sake of others, it reinforces your own composure. You rise to the role. You live into the responsibility. It's a feedback loop. Your calm steadies others, and their steadiness strengthens yours. So when you're under pressure, remind yourself people are watching. They're feeling your energy, whether you realize it or not. And you have a choice. You can pass on fear, frustration, and chaos. Or you can pass on courage, patience, and clarity. One of those choices will drain the room. The other will elevate it. The truth is none of us get through pressure alone. We depend on each other. Which means every time you control your emotions, you're not just protecting yourself. You're serving the group. You're saying, I will not add to the chaos. I will be a source of calm. And in times of pressure, that might be the greatest act of leadership any of us can offer. When we talk about controlling emotions, it's easy to imagine some kind of perfection. Never losing your cool, never feeling afraid, never letting anger slip out. But that's not what this is about. You're human. You will feel fear. You will feel anger. You will feel pressure. The goal isn't to erase emotions. The goal is to lead them, to decide what role they play in your story. And that starts with awareness, naming what you feel, because you can't lead what you don't understand. It continues with the pause, the courage to step back when every instinct tells you to react. It deepens with reframing, choosing a better story than the one fear is feeding you. It anchors in the body, because the mind listens when the body steadies. It grows stronger through practice, the daily work of preparing in calm, so you don't crumble in chaos. It transforms when you turn outward, serving others instead of drowning in yourself. And it becomes leadership when you realize your calm is contagious. The way you handle pressure doesn't just change your life, it changes the lives of everyone who looks to you. So no, controlling your emotions isn't about being tougher or colder or pretending you don't feel. It's about becoming someone steady in a world that shakes. It's about being the kind of person who can walk into chaos and bring order, not because the storm isn't real, but because you've learned to steady your own ship. And here's the truth. Every single one of us can do this. Not by waiting for the big moments, but by practicing in the small ones, by choosing presence over panic, service over self, calm over chaos. If you can do that, even a little at a time, you won't just control your emotions under pressure, you'll inspire others to do the same. And in a world full of noise, full of fear, full of storms, maybe that's the leadership we need most.